Lucia hands out flyers against TTIP, the planned Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership between the European Union and the United States. We're in Barcelona, Spain, one of those left-leaning cities in Europe with a strong protest scene. There's an increasing public backlash against globalization, fueled by populist movements on the radical right and the radical left, both searching for identity and a world protected against products from abroad.
Our democracy is in big threat. We could lose our sovereignty as people. With these treaties, we are transferring our powers, our public institutions, and the civil society. We're transferring our powers in hands of big corporations. And with these treaties, basically, we're killing the states.
Let's grab our mic and knock on the door of Ficosa, a Spanish multinational producing car components. Almost all major car brands around the world get products made by Ficosa, a real global player turning over 1 billion, yes, billion euros a year. Ficosa has branches in Europe, Asia, South and North America. It wasn't easy to get authorization to film. Many companies hide away when asked to speak up for TTIP. What are the advantages of a transatlantic free trade agreement? We'll ask the management. Let's move from Barcelona to Madrid.
Nice to meet you.
Most car components, such as seat belts, lights and brakes, need to be certified twice on both sides of the Atlantic. For the car component industry, that adds up to $12 billion per year. TTIP could save this.
26% of the costs of our products are increased due to different regulations between Europe and USA. If this agreement could solve this point, transactions would be much more easier, our business would be much bigger, and a lot of employment would be created in our country. If we gain 20% more of turnover, we could create 15,000 jobs in Spain.
Back in Barcelona, we meet up again with Lucia in a colourful soap shop. Lush is a global player too, employing 15,000 people in outlets all over the world, 250 in Spain. But supporting anti-globalization activists, Lush produces locally and campaigns against animal testing. The company's compliance manager says he fears TTIP would open up the doors to Europe for cosmetics not in line with the company's ethical branding.
One good example against TTIP is that we'll lose the protection against the use of forbidden chemicals in cosmetics in Europe. In Europe, there are some 1,300 banned chemical products in cosmetics, while in the US, there are only 11 chemicals banned in makeup. An example is lead. In the US, it's still used in cosmetics, such as lipsticks.
Labelling is the only tool people have to understand what exactly the product they're buying contains, where it comes from and what's in it. But the TTIP agreement is threatening this basic information, which is important for the consumer as to whether or not to buy a product, depending on our ethical values.
Flores Valles, located on the outskirts of Madrid, is one of the oldest industrial companies in Spain. It was founded back in 1830 and has been family-owned for 6 generations. Today, it's one of the world leaders for laboratory furniture and fume hoods. The head of the international division is from Portugal. When the company decided to open a branch in New York, the top manager tried to get a working or an investor visa. The US refused, so the company had to hire local staff.
America still has the Buy American Act. So for some products you still have to buy American-made steel, American-made concrete, American-made wood products, because for strategic projects in the USA, an European company cannot even run for unless they buy all products, all raw materials in the US and manufacture the whole thing in the US. We ourselves have a company within our group that does the industrial kitchens for the high-speed trains. We won a big contract in the US to furnish 50 trains, and we had to do a transfer of technology to an American company that we joint ventured with in order to manufacture every single piece of that equipment in the US.
Anti-TTIP activists meet to prepare next day's demonstration. Lucia plans a human chain around the EU building in Barcelona. In the meantime, on the other side of the Atlantic, Clinton meets Trump. While Clinton's position on TTIP is ambiguous, the right-wing presidential candidate Trump claims protectionist rules. Popular far right in the US and radical left in Spain share similar positions. Mid-October, we have an appointment with the Spanish Secretary for State. Together with his Swedish counterpart, he rallied for TTIP. Together with ministers from Portugal, Czech Republic, Denmark, Finland, the Baltic States, Italy, Ireland and the United Kingdom, he sent an open letter to the European Commission urging a relaunch of negotiations.
On both sides of the Atlantic, who are the TTIP killers, be it in Europe, be it in the United States?
We see that there is some opposition to TTIP. That is true. We are seeing that on the extreme left and on the extreme right in many areas across the European Union. On the US side, there is some protectionist movement coming from populist movements as well. We've seen Mr. Trump attacking free trade agreements. We believe that this makes little sense, and the prosperity of the United States has been propelled by free trade in the last few decades. Free trade is good, and TTIP is a way of moving free trade forward.
Lucia, too, is not against free trade, but she is against TTIP, believing the Transatlantic trade agreement could downgrade ecological and social standards in Europe. Today, some 2,000 people are on the streets in Barcelona. At the same time, in Madrid, about 20,000 protesters are demonstrating. Well, the voices of TTIP supporters are almost inaudible, while the voices of TTIP opponents are very noisy. Opponents have concerns that a special arbitration system will be created to settle disputes between states and foreign investors. Critics say this would allow multinationals to dictate public policy. The European Commission says that's wrong. Others say it's true.
Those treaties are killer agreements. They make people into slaves. They're just looking for more economic benefits, and they're going to abolish all norms, standards, rules and laws established in Europe for hundreds of years.
Is TTIP dead? Perhaps not, but the proposed free trade deal between the EU and the US is at best years away. TTIP depends on the outcome of elections on both sides of the Atlantic.